Anybody getting a car for Christmas? You know, you've seen the commercials or the video, whatever, and they come outside and the big bows on top of it because you can't wrap it. And they go nuts, and, you know, it's kind of funny. But when you think about it, an automobile means a lot of things. It means transportation, right? But it means a lot more than that, because if it just meant transportation, if it simply was another tool to do another job, there wouldn't be so many different models, and they wouldn't be so fancy. I mean, there's all different kinds. You even go out in the parking lot here, and there's a whole range of different types of cars. But why is that? Well, it first of all kind of dates back to this guy. This is William Durant. You may not have ever heard his name before, but I guarantee you've heard of the company that he was the president of from basically 1900 to 1920-ish. He was the CEO of General Motors. And William Durant knew that he needed more. You see, at the time, the world leader in automobiles was Henry Ford. And Henry Ford would sell you any car that you want, as long as it was a Model T. And he would sell it to you in any color that you wanted, as long as it was black. Black paint dried faster anyway, going down the assembly line, so that's the only color that he would do it. Because Henry thought it was just about transportation, but Durant knew that people wanted some more. So he had this idea: I'm going to start buying up other car brands. And that was a good plan. But like, you do this thing, and now you've got all these different car companies, and you're like, well, now what? How do we distinguish one from the other? How do we make this work? Why buy one when you could buy the other one? Well, the next guy that came along, the next president, was Alfred P. Sloan, and he is the guy that figured it out and probably made an automobile a status symbol. You know, Dave Ramsey talks about in his little opening spiel, the paid-off home mortgages replaced the BMW as the status symbol of choice. Because Alfred P. Sloan figured out that, hey, people are different. And he's took all these brands that GM had and said, you know what, I want to make what he called a ladder of success. That was an internal term that GM used, okay? On the marketing that they put out to the world, they said a car for every purse and purpose. But they arranged these car brands based off of basically the classes of people that you saw in society. So Chevrolet, okay, that was your base model. That was your poor people, right? That was the bottom rung of the ladder. It was functional. It do what you needed to do, but it wasn't really that fancy, okay? It didn't have the latest and greatest in bells and whistles and gadgets, because the latest and greatest went to Cadillac. And you start looking at these cars and start looking at them from 1920 on up until the 70s. When something new came out, it went to a Cadillac first, and then in a couple of years it would be in the next one, and the next one, and the next one, right? Pontiac was set up to be kind of your next step up. So now this gentleman, he's older, he's making a little more money, and he wants something a little fancier than that Chevrolet he's been driving, right? If you got even fancier, you know, middle class, Oldsmobile, that was your next level up. And then Buick, which fathoms my mind, because in my age, day and time, Buicks were grandpa cars. My grandpa only had Ford station wagons and Buicks, and I still remember what they smell like too. It's kind of like Old Spice. But, you know, you were really something in the 20s if you're driving a Buick, and then, of course, you know, movie stars were the only ones that could afford Cadillacs back in the day. A Cadillac in that day and time, you know, was like $5,000, which is like hundreds of thousands of dollars today. Right? Alfred P. Sloan figured out that, you know what, people are different. They're at different places in their life. And they want different things. They want colors. They want options. And they want They want something to show kind of who they are. And you know what? That idea of people being different applies to us here today. Because we're not trying to sell cars. And we're not even trying to sell Jesus, but in reality, we are trying to bring people to the Lord. And you know what? Different people will be brought to the Lord different ways. Just like there was a range of cars for a range of people, today there are a range of tactics. If that's the word you want to call. I call this lesson the range of evangelism. Because when you look in Scripture and you look at, in the first century, people that brought people to Jesus, or even Jesus himself, the way he called people to himself, he didn't always use the same tactic every time. I mean, if there was one surefire way for you to bring someone to Jesus, it'd be like the shampoo bottle, lather, rinse, repeat, right? Wouldn't that be nice if there were just one way? You know, put it on a little card, and you walk up and say, hi, come to Jesus. Hi, come to Jesus. I mean, you just do the same thing over and over again. It'd be brilliant. But it doesn't work that way. So this morning we're going to step through some different places in Scripture. And I have arranged these, not that one's any better than the other, but I've arranged these based on the amount of physical effort involved. Hope you understand what I mean when I say that. Like, how likely are you to sweat during this process? Okay? So the first one, we're going to start in John 1, and we're going to see something pretty simple. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, follow me. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, city of Andrew and Peter, and Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael said to him, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, what? Come and see. What did Nathanael do? Nathanael did go and see, and Nathanael becomes a disciple of Christ. Why? Just because somebody said what? Come on. A simple invitation. He didn't have to talk about Luther's 95 Thesis. He didn't have to know any theology whatsoever. He just said, hey, we found this thing. And I don't even know that I completely understand it, but boy, you need to come check it out. How hard is that? How difficult is that to just say, come and see? Not really. Now, is it going to work on everybody? No, of course it's not. Is it going to work in every situation? No. But there are some situations where literally the person that you're talking to is so primed and so ready for something different that all you got to say is just, come on. Okay. I'm coming. There may be a lot of things behind this. Maybe you have built a relationship with this person. Maybe they know you and they've been watching your life and they see something different. And, you know, maybe they've been thinking for a long time, hey, I wonder why they don't talk to me about church. You know, I see them post stuff about going to church and the stuff that they do, and I see them like, why haven't they said anything to me about it? And finally, one day you look at them and say, won't you come on? I believe we will. You know, sometimes it's just that simple. And what happens if you tell them come and see and they don't? That's not on you. You offered. But are they going to come if you don't offer? Maybe. Maybe not. Right? Sometimes it's just that simple. It doesn't always have to be difficult. It doesn't always have to be, let's sit down and now we're going to have a theological sparring match. Sometimes you just come and see. Now, the next one. This is a little bit further up the rung of the ladder. Still not difficult, right? This is Jesus healing the man at the tombs. Mark 5, beginning verse 1. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. You know, sometimes you ever like walk in the door at work or walk in the door at home, it's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, can I get a minute? Can I breathe just a second? But nope, here comes the demon-possessed man. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, which means they've been trying to. Not even with a chain, for he'd often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." Really? You're a demon and a tormentor, and you don't want to be tormented. For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs were feeding there on the hillside. And they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs and let us enter them." I'm feeling a little oinky today, you know. So he gave them permission. You understand how powerful he was? He could give demons permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. All that bacon. The herdsmen fled and told in the city and in the country, and the people came to see what had just happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had had the legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from the region. As he was getting in the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And he did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. How hard is this? Go and tell what the Lord has done for you. You know, sometimes people look at their lives and think, "I've made such a mess out of my life, and I've done so many horrible and evil things that there's no way I could turn my life towards the good." Now listen, I wouldn't advise this. Don't go make a mess out of your life. But if you've already in the mess, when you come out and you change your life, and people know where you were, they know what you did, and now when you are different, that has an incredible amount of power and authority. That's a message that I, as a preacher, cannot send. There are all kinds of people in here this morning that have power and ability to reach people that I don't have. There's nothing special about me. Sometimes it's just as simple as, "Why are you different?" Well, let me tell you what the Lord's done for me. He wanted to go and be with Jesus. He wanted to follow him, and naturally so, who wouldn't? And Jesus told a lot of people, "Listen, go home and don't tell anybody." But here in this case, he told this man, "Go tell everybody what the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you." Why? Because it was going to have such an effect. It was going to be so powerful because everybody knew who he was. And when everybody shows up and the crazy dude, you know, every town's got a couple crazy people, and if you don't know who that is, it may be you. But when you see the town crazy person sitting there and he's normal, you go, what happened to them? Jesus happened to them. The gospel happened to them. It changed their life. And if it can change their life, the implication is what? It can change yours too. I mean, so far we've not sweated a drop, have we? Come and see and go and tell what the Lord has done for you. Those things are physically simple. Now, I get it. Opening your mouth And putting yourself out there is not easy. I get that it's not. But can I tell you something? If the Jewish nation and all their idolatry and everything they did didn't mess it up, you can't mess it up so bad that God can't use it. If you have a willingness to do the right thing, and you know what, you get tongue-tied and you get tongue-twisted, and I'm afraid it's going to be awkward or whatever, so what if it's awkward? Moses looked at God and said, I don't speak real well. I know I made your mouth. I'll send Aaron. Don't worry about what you can't do. Can you really mess it up? Are you so talented? Are you such a powerful person that you can mess it up so bad God can't do something with it? I don't think you are. Because if I can't mess it up, you can't mess it up either. Not when you have the heart behind it that wants to do the right thing. That wants to do what's right. You can't mess that up. And guess what? Even if you do mess it up, the only way to learn how to do it better is to what? Go punt it. Well, that didn't exactly work, but I know now what to do differently next time. It's okay. Sometimes we feel like we've got to be perfect and we got to before we can do anything. That's not true. It's not true. The only way you're going to get any better is to do it. So don't be scared. You ain't sweated a drop here at this point. All right, number next. This is a little story about a wee little man. You get what I did there? Zacchaeus, Luke 19. He entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich, and he was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up in the sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and come down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled, he is gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he's also the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Now, sometimes there's some debate with this, okay? Had Zacchaeus already changed his life and began to give refunds, basically? You understand, being a tax collector in the first century, especially for the Roman government, meant you had to collect X amount, but anything else you could get on top of that was your commission check. It was a license to steal. Had he already begun to change his life and give refunds before that day when Jesus looked up in the tree? Or is he standing here and saying, Jesus, I'm going to do this now? I can't tell you that I know for sure which is the case. A lot of people will tell you that right here he's kind of admitting that I'm going to change. I'm not so sure that he hasn't already began to change. Obviously, there's something in this man's life about Jesus that's already changed him, because you don't go run and climb up random trees for no reason, right? But whether he changes before Jesus gets there or after Jesus gets there, the point is the same. He changed. He had harmed people. And he went back, and he's going to make what? He's going to make a restitution. He's going to restore something. Now, I get it. Not everything we've done in our life is fixable. Not everything in our life that we can go back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. Let me repay you for this damage that I've done to you. I get that. But some things are fixable. Some things you may go back and look at somebody in the eye and say, you know what, I've never admitted this before, but I did you wrong, and here's not only what it takes to replace it, but here's a little extra. And that right there, because all along what? They know what you've done, or at least they suspect it. And when you own up to it and you admit, here's what I've done, I'm sorry, that may be the very thing that breaks down the door for them and says, you know what? What's different about you? What caused you to change? Because I know who you were before. I know back when you were running around, right? We talk about our heathen days. I don't know, that's a term I use sometimes, right? Back when I was a heathen. Not that I don't still mess up at times, but what happens when you restore something? What kind of value and power does your own example have when you not only, well, you know, I'm a better person now. I'm a better person now. When you go back to that person, you say, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I'm a Christian now, and I realize how selfish and how foolish that was, and I hope that you'll forgive me. You think about the power that could have. Now, have you sweated yet? I don't know. Maybe you have sweated, maybe you've not. But make no doubt about it, this is hard. It's hard to go back and say, you know what, I messed up. It's hard to go back and say, I'm sorry. But it's also so freeing at the same time. It's so freeing to be like, listen, I know that you know that I know that you know, right? You get to put all that mental burden down. Maybe restoring all this caused a great physical burden to Zacchaeus. Maybe it drained his bank account. Maybe he's going to have to eat ramen noodles for a month or more. Maybe he ain't got money now to afford ramen noodles. He's going to have to beg. But you know what? He'd rather be able to lay his head down at night on a pillow and have his conscience clear than he had to live in a mansion knowing he'd stole a bunch of money. The right thing usually is hard. That's typically one of the things that makes it right. But you think about the power that your example could have to bring somebody to Christ. Just through, I'm sorry. Now, this last one here, maybe you thought about this, and this is where we're going, but like this one right here, you're going to sweat. Okay? You're going to be like, was it Richard Simmons, sweating to the oldies, you know? I should have thought and put a picture in there. That would have been great. That would have been so funny. Why can't I think better when y'all are not around me? Mark 2, beginning of verse 1. And when he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home. And many were gathered together so that there was no more room, not even at the door. And he was preaching the word to them. And they came, bringing to him a paralytic carried before men. And when they could not get near him because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him. And when they had made an opening, they let down the bed on which the paralytic lay. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, Son, your sins are forgiven. Now some of the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts, why does this man speak like that? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? And immediately Jesus, perceiving in his spirit that they were thus questioned within himself, said to them, why do you question these things in your heart? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven? Or to say, rise, take up your bed, and walk? But that you may know the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the paralytic, I say to you, rise, pick up your bed, and go home. And he rose and immediately picked up his bed and went out before them all. So they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw anything like this. You understand, the man on the bed, relatively speaking, didn't do a lot in this situation. You know, what's somebody weigh? 100 pounds, 120, 150, 60? Too much in my case. Like, how far did they pack this man? I don't know. But I bet going here to the car with him will make you sweat. But what did they do? They created an opportunity. So many times we see people in Scripture that meet a physical need to gain an opportunity to meet a spiritual need. Why did Jesus feed a multitude and then they walked away? Because he gained the opportunity to teach them about the bread of life. Why did these people pack this person? Because of their own belief and their own faith. And I imagine them, they get up there to the crowd and you can't even get in and you're like, What do we do now? I don't know. I was just, And somebody says in the group, let's go tear the roof off the building, let them down. What do you think we are, cranes? I don't care, we got to go. They did it. They made it work. How many times are we in somebody's life at a moment where they need help? And it may require physical lifting. It may require, you think about the Good Samaritan. He come and found this man naked and half beaten and dying, and he bandaged him up, poured oil on him. He gave him his oil and his wound, or his wrap, and put him on his donkey and give him his money. He gave him everything that was rightfully his, including a good night's sleep, because he stayed up with him at the end that night and took care of him. And he even opened a line of credit for the man. Sometimes bringing somebody the gospel involves a lot of work. And you know what? Not everybody takes it. You can't help that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't help the next one because the last one didn't take it. But maybe God has given you a set of gifts or talents or abilities or a set of material things. Told a story before about the people that were broke down in the curve. And they need to be pulled out of the way. And you know what I happened to be driving that day? A truck. A truck that just so happened to be, and this looked really funny because I got a half-ton truck pulling a ton dually with a big old trailer behind it. But my truck so happened to be powerful enough to pull that truck out of the road. I didn't need more truck than what I had. I could have probably done it with a Honda, I bet. But I was able to use what God had already given me. I was able to use a blessing that God gave me to bless someone else. In a lot of ways, how much easier does it get? Oh, you need this? I got this. Come on. It's not mine anyway. It's not my truck. I hope God doesn't charge me for all the dents. But you get what I'm trying to say. Sometimes it may take a lot of carrying their weight to bring somebody to the gospel, to Jesus. But in a lot of cases, those people cannot be brought any other way. It won't ever work. You've got to show them something different and not just tell them something different. They need to see it. Different people need different things. They're all different. This lesson, and we're at Christmas time, and everybody's thinking about the right present and the best present, and I get it. There's a lot of work. I'm not done present making yet, just to be honest with you. But we're about to interact with a lot of people over the next couple of days. And you look at the world, and the world right now is focused on the birth of Christ, and there's been a lot of debate over the years, People want to focus on the birth of Christ. Awesome. Great. That's what we like to call a conversation starter. Because here's the thing about the birth of Christ. You know what it led to? We think about Christmas Eve. We talk about Christmas Eve a lot. And a lot of times when we're scheduling parties, right? If we hold a party on Christmas Eve, it's just as good as holding it on Christmas Day. You know why we're so excited about Christmas Eve? Because it leads to something better. Can I tell you about the birth of Christ? You know why the birth of Christ is so great? Because it led to his death. He come to the earth, and he was born. Somebody wants to strike up a conversation about the birth of Christ. Say, great, yes, the birth of Christ is wonderful. It's amazing. You know what? It led him to a sinlessly perfect life here where he can be tempted in all ways such as we are, Hebrews 13, 4 or 5. Read all of them, it'll be all right. Right? That's a ready-made conversation starter. The birth of Christ is so wonderful because it led to his death. What better gift could you give this season than the gift of salvation? You can't do it for them. But maybe you can do something as simple as just come and see. I don't know what you need this morning. I don't know what kind of present you need. I don't know what your heart needs. Maybe you need to come down front. Maybe you need to talk to somebody in private. We've got the new shepherd's room back here in the back. But whatever you need this morning, don't leave here. Because there's people here that love you. And there's always a God around you that loves you. We can help you in any way. God, come sing to us.